Big Fani Willis getting sued, and this is after she does not show up to her debate. This is what her podium looked like. She is now in a contested election running against another Democrat for Fulton County DA, and she disrespected the voters of Georgia and Fulton. And now she's being sued by this woman. Her name is Representative Mainor, and she says that she has been being stalked by an unwell person for a very long time, has gone through a bunch of litigation, legal charges, and orders against harassment and injunctions and so on, and is still under attack because Fani is so corrupt and so incompetent that she is not doing anything about it. So we'll read through the lawsuit and you'll see just how broken the entire DA's office is, of course, because it's run by Fani, the biggest Fani in Georgia. So what happened there at the debate? Man, she didn't even show up. Here is what this clip looked like from Benny Johnson. He clipped this for us. Says, here, this is what this whole scene was. Here is her opponent standing there, ready to debate, ready to go, got a suit and tie on and everything. And where's Fani? Anyone have eyes on her? Is she at Nathan's again? Is she back in Napa Valley? Did she go to Belize again? Where's Fani? Come on.
Let's meet the candidates. Christian Y. Smith is an author and attorney. Fani Willis has served as Fulton County District Attorney since 2021. Ms. Willis declined to participate in the debate and is represented by an empty podium.
She's at Nathan's Hot Dogs right now, stuffing her face with a footlong, and so she doesn't, I don't need to be there. Very disrespectful to the people of Fulton, very disrespectful. And so she was a no-show, and here was a little bit of a clip from the guy who was also on stage. Of course, this is a news report. Here's what that sounded like.
Of former President Donald Trump and others accused of trying to overturn the 2020 presidential election results here in Georgia. Smith talked about that case and referred to Willis's controversial move
Where's
to hire
Fani?
her former romantic partner, Nathan Wade.
She didn't bust in like the Kool-Aid guy this time.
That issue is important to us here in Fulton County and a lot of people across the country. We all heard the phone call. We all saw what happened on January 6, 2021.
Great.
But you have to do things differently. When you pay one attorney nearly $1 million to handle one case, that leaves the rest of us vulnerable. That hurts everyone else in Fulton County.
Wade stepped.
Nathan's Hot Dog, $1 million for him. You heard him. Not much different than Fani in terms of J6 talk, and it was interesting to hear his take on it. But this is the person who is ultimately suing Fani. Now, this was an interesting press conference because she just essentially talks about stalking for about 5 minutes here and how bad her experience has been. This dude has been following around. Stalkers are, very dangerous, very overwhelming. And she's been trying everything she can to get some recourse, but Fani Willis is so incompetent. She's, at Napa Valley drinking Grey Goose again, that there's no prosecutions happening here.
If Fani Willis investigated my case, she would have spoken to my secretary at the Emory Healthcare, who would have shared with her. My stalker repeatedly came to my job to harass me, repeatedly calling victims at unreasonable amount of times. It could be up to 50 times a day, but they'll make up excuses or lie as to why they had to call you 50 times. Stalkers will cash app you money unsolicited, and you have to block them from sending you money. Stalkers will repeatedly wait for you at your car and surprise you with the "I was just in the area."
Okay. So some of those sound bad, but the other one doesn't sound that bad, actually.
Stalkers will also call you from other people's numbers once you block them.
Okay. That's
Stalkers
annoying.
will leave threatening voicemails on your phone, vacillating between thoughts of undying love.
It's not good. Stalking's bad. Stalking's very bad. We don't want that at all. But sending you Cash App money, and it's like, okay. How much? Like, how much money are they sending? All right. I'm just curious. Okay, so this is the lawsuit. Now, this actually is pretty bad. There's a bunch in here. It's 17 pages. Let's see what she says. She says, comes now Misha Mainor. That's the woman we were just hearing. She says, I am now suing Fulton County and Big Fani Willis for a bunch of stuff. Says, we're demanding a jury trial on this. Says, my stalker has been coming after me for a very long time. Says, Fulton County, we know all about him. We're going to call him the DA's office. And here is the statement of facts against Fani. First of all, this person we just heard from is a state representative, right? So not just some random person. Works in the Georgia House of Representatives. Says she ran a campaign and they hired Mr. Corin Monson as a campaign volunteer. We're going to see this name comes back. So Corin Monson. Now, prior to working on the campaign, they were associates for several years, many friends in common. And he wanted to help her get elected. But then in February, she was forced to terminate him from the volunteer position. Why? Unruly and belligerent behavior. And then he began to stalk her. He would show up at campaign events. He joined her church. He would sit outside her home. And then this guy also called from several different numbers, left her voicemails. And Monson later turned these voicemails into a song. Wow. He admitted he was in love with her, even showed showed up at her home once and proposed in front of her kids. And now they'd known each other for years, but never had a romantic relationship. So in June, he was cited for criminal trespass. Okay, you got to get off my property, call the cops, they come. August, a couple months later, she goes and files a TPO, a temporary restraining order, protective order. Arizona, we call them injunctions against harassments and protective orders. Now, a judge granted this TPO against Mr. Monson. So he cannot come within certain locations or within her residence, place of business, contact her, whatever. So boom, look what happens immediately. This guy is not well. August, the order comes in. He probably got served with it, so he's on notice now. Then in September, he violates the order. Okay, a year later, violates it again. In September, Fulton County DA's office was indicted him for aggravated stalking for violating the TPO. So, and let's be clear, okay, this is very likely an unwell person, and this is something that the DA should, clearly be investigating to protect the citizenry, especially, like, this is an elected official in Georgia, just to be ultra clear about that. Everybody should have protection, but this is an elected official. We also have Fani, who is constantly screaming, as well as many people on the left, about how Trump is causing bad behavior towards people in the case or towards the people in the trial. We've never seen anything like this, right? So this is the type of conduct that is actually problematic. They say Trump posted True Social and Engeron got a nasty email. So that means that Trump should be gagged and all of his rights should be stripped away, and our rights too, to hear from him, right? But this is actually problematic stuff, right? This is criminal behavior. You can't show up on people's property and not leave. You can't violate a court order. The dude's probably unwell, right? I've represented many people in these positions, and they're often, family members who are hiring you for this person because they're so unwell. They just, you got to basically, deal with that before you can ever have some remedy here. But in January, the office indicted him. Okay, so now he's got an aggravated assault charge, which is typically a felony, might be a weapon, might be injuries, maybe with a, like a vehicle or something. And plaintiff was the victim. We don't know what that was, but for the two cases, okay, now this dude is facing 20 years in prison. It's aggravating pretty quickly. So on information and belief, Mr. Monson's a close friend and associate, this is weird, with defendant Commissioner Arrington. Arrington, a commissioner. Now, in 2020 of October, Monson hired Commissioner Arrington as his defense attorney for the aggravated stalking case. So then Arrington comes in and has a lot of influence. Now, as an assistant DA on Monson's case, informed the plaintiff, Mainor, of the influence that this guy, the commissioner, wielded in Fani's office. Now, he used his influence to circumvent the policies, and he intimidated the DAs. He copied the DAs. He copied Fani on emails. Wow. So this dude has maybe like a relationship with Fani, right? He's like, I know the DA. Okay, I know who she is. So he's sending an email to a line prosecutor and copying Fani Willis on it. He's negotiating plea deals with Fani Willis instead of with the line prosecutors. And he's demanding meetings with Fani when they don't bend to his will. They're like, this dude's crazy. We're not giving him a plea deal. He's like, okay, I'll just talk to Fani. Now, Fulton County residents hire him as a defense attorney because of the power that he has. He's able to yield in the DA's office. And as a Fulton County commissioner, okay, so apparently that is, yeah, there you go, okay? Like, that's a wild conflict. So this dude, Commissioner Arrington, is like another public official who is literally responsible for the budget of the DA's office, and he's accepting private clients. That's crazy. So he's like, yeah, you better give my client a plea deal or I'm gonna cut your budget, Fani. What do you want to do about it? Wild. That is such a conflict of interest. That is just crazy. For example, on July 14th, Willis went before the Board of Commissioners, where that dude sat, including Arrington. She says, I need more money to hire more staff. During that meeting, Arrington passionately advocated for money to go to her office. At one point during the meeting, Arrington states, F the lowest mileage rate. I don't give a darn about the lowest mileage rate, okay? Where's the money that the DA's office needs? Now, as Fulton County Commissioner, Arrington is also responsible for setting the budget of the judges there, and he has these duties, and while he has it, he also serves as a defense attorney for defendants in Fulton. That is just wild to me. When a commissioner serves as a defense attorney, he's paid by criminal defendants for their defense. Yeah, probably charges a boatload. Now, from November 2020 to October, Commissioner Arrington influenced proceedings on behalf of Mr. Monson. He used his influence to broker a deal with Fani, or with Mr. Paul Howard at the time. Now, the deal that Arrington negotiated with Howard was not presented to opposing counsel, the assistant DA on the case. Now, in pertinent part, the deal would have allowed Monson to plead guilty to a misdemeanor, even though he was charged with a violent felony. This deal goes against the DA's policies, right? If it's a violent offense, you're not getting a misdemeanor on that. Using a weapon, he might have hit her with their car or something like that. The DA's office policy was to only offer misdemeanor pleas in place of felonies only in extraordinary circumstances. And the office policy was also to punish repeat criminal offenders to the fullest extent of the law, especially when they violate a court order, right? Like if a judge says, don't do this, and you do it. Furthermore, one of the DA's office policy goals was to lower the occurrence of domestic violence against women in Fulton County. This dude is literally, he has aggravated stalking. It includes the offense of aggravated stalking. He has a prior criminal history. He's got a prior aggravated assault charge and was subsequently reduced to a misdemeanor in a negotiated plea. And second, Arrington is heard on jail calls with Mr. Monson conspiring to cause the sitting judge on the criminal case to be removed. And I don't know how the heck she got those phone calls. How did she get those phone calls? That's attorney-client privilege call here. Wild. Now, Commissioner Arrington encouraged Mr. Monson to file a fraudulent complaint against the judge. According to this commissioner, Judge Ellerby needed to be removed from Monson's case because she would reject the misdemeanor plea he had negotiated. Arrington states the problem is the effing judge. Says the judge is the only problem, he says, because he can get the DA to drop this to a misdemeanor. Now, after filing a fraudulent complaint against the judge, Monson temporarily had criminal proceedings held before different judges, including Judge Adams. This is crazy. On information and belief, Arrington has a personal relationship with Judge Adams. What? What is happening in Georgia? So the commissioner has a relationship with the judge and he's going in front of Judge Adams. This complaint is crazy. And this is from a state representative. Like, this is not some random person, okay? They're indicting each other too. Did Arrington and Adams, did they go to Belize? Did they have the cabin opposite of Fani and Wade? They did, didn't they? On information and belief, Commissioner Arrington used his influence to have ex parte meetings with Judge Adams. I'm sure he did. Now, prior assistant DAs on Monson's case, this is crazy, informed plaintiff Mainor. So prior ADAs on Monson's case told her, so it sounds like Fani's office might be leaking this, informed this woman, Mainor, that Judge Adams' engagement with Monson and Arrington during a hearing was unlike her typical demeanor. She was very deferential to them and she allowed outbursts from them both. Okay, so Judge Adams, like, my boyfriend's here with his client. My question is, how did she get that phone call? Okay, jail calls are recorded. Yes, I know. If you call your significant other and you're not a lawyer, it's all recorded. They're listening. They can use that, whatever. It's all fair game. So be very cognizant of that if you're talking to someone in jail. But when the lawyer calls in, all right, that's attorney-client privilege. You're not supposed to be listening to that. You're not supposed to leak that out. So attorney calls and now she's got the phone call. She's got the recordings. So did the prosecutors leak the recordings to this state representative is my question. So her boyfriend's in the courtroom and she's like, I love it when you talk dirty to me. This is a little weird because I'm in my robe right now in the courtroom, but okay, you know, yeah, baby, whatever. Weird. So third, on jail calls between Arrington, who's the defense lawyer, and Monson, Commissioner Arrington, who's still the defense attorney, agrees to use his influence to get a favorable outcome. He says, I'm going to use my father, which is Marvin Arrington Sr., who's a former Fulton County Superior Court judge, and his influence to sway the proceedings. He also says that we're going to use my position as commissioner. We're going to get a favorable result for Monson. Crazy. Fourth, during jail calls, defendant Commissioner Arrington admits to telling Fani Willis, who was the district attorney-elect at the time, about the case with Mr. Monson in advance of her being sworn in. Now, the commissioner states that he wants Mrs. Willis to know that, quote, that bee is crazy, which is a reference to Mainor. So they're talking about her now. Okay, so Monson, right, attacked Mainor. So they're saying, we're going to tell Willis that this victim of this crime is just psycho. She's just a lunatic. And therefore, Arrington is going to use his influence to bias Willis against Mainor. Now, I think that, you know, there's a conflict here, of course, because this guy, like, pays Fani's bills, which is crazy. And I also want to be clear, there are positions, there are boards in different cities and different states where they want different people. Like, they actually want defense attorneys on them, right? They say, we want one defense attorney, one prosecutor, we want one person here to do evaluations and some things like that. Okay, that happens all the time. That's not unusual. This is unusual when the guy sets the budget of the judges and the prosecutor and then hires himself out as defense attorney in order to put leverage on this. But my point is, this is an argument every single defense attorney has made ever, okay? Like, oh, dude, your victim is claiming he hit her? That chick is crazy, dude. Have you seen this? Prosecutor's like, no, wow. Okay, yeah, she is a little crazy. Okay, all right, so she started it, so give my client a deal, you know, give him a better deal. She started it, so give me a deal. Happens all the time, okay? Yours truly included. This chick is nuts, dude. Look at these text messages. She's crazy. Guy's like, all right, yeah, she's crazy. So that's not unusual, okay? That's very common. And there are a lot of crazy chicks out there. It's just true. So this is, you know, a little bit normal, but saying he's going to use his influence, saying I'll cut her check, you know, I'll cut her bill is a little bit of a problem. Now, fifth, during these same jail calls, Arrington encouraged Monson's wife, Miss Alicia Monson, to harass Mainor. So go harass the victim. So this guy's in jail for, you know, aggravated assault. And so the wife is going to go harass her. Mainor later sought a protective order against her. Nice family, huh? Now, after the referenced jail calls were publicly released, okay, so they were publicly released. That answers that. And I don't know how that happened. Commissioner Arrington resigned as Monson's attorney. So that guy got busted. Then in January, District Attorney Madam Fani Willis, what's that for, Madam, was sworn in as Fulton County's DA. Now, as the top prosecuting official, Willis became responsible for the adjudication of Monson's criminal cases. Interesting. Okay, now, although Arrington stepped down as his attorney, he continued to wield influence over the case. He maintained that Paul Howard's offer. Then the new lawyer came in and repeatedly referenced the plea deal. Says, you already offered him a misdemeanor, so give that back. The new lawyer argued that Fani should stand behind the original plea deal. And although Monson was ultimately not offered a misdemeanor, Willis did dismiss one of the aggravated stalking cases. One of the remaining aggravated stalking cases, he was offered a plea of 3 years to serve 1 in prison, the balance on probation with credit for the time he'd already served. It's a pretty good deal. Yeah, and he's probably been in there for several months already. Might be time, getting close to getting out. And I don't know if they have, 85% time or, additional credit that he could earn, but he might be getting out after that. Now, so plaintiff Mainor was not informed of the plea deal extended to Monson prior to him accepting, which is a violation of the Georgia Victims Bill of Rights. Wow. So that's scandalous. Yeah, you go talk to the victims, right? You don't say, we're going to give this guy probation. And they're like, what? He's going to come back to my house and kill me. So you kind of get their input on it. Now they can override that. They can say, well, he's not going to come kill you. Relax. But they didn't even talk to the victims. Certain victims' rights must be specified. You've probably heard this in your state. You probably have a Victims Bill of Rights. Now, Mainor also did not approve of the negotiated plea deal. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's dispositive, right? She doesn't ordinarily have to approve it. Like she didn't approve it. Marcy's laws applies to victims of aggravated stalking and says in September, he pled no contest to aggravated stalking. He received credit for time served. And so the plea deal was not appropriate according to her own interoffice policies. And by her own words, she said, we created the very first domestic violence unit in Georgia. And so the negotiated plea deal did not align with the sentencing guidelines. The DA's office, it is not their office to offer a 1-year jail sentence to a criminal defendant charged with a violent crime when he's got a prior violent history as well. And the shortened probation sentence was also not consistent, and Fani failed to investigate these charges. They failed to interview a single person who had witnessed the behavior towards Mainor. And so she's been treated as a victim, disparate treatment as a victim, and so she took the following actions to deal with this. In August, she was forced to notify the Department of Justice Office on Violence Against Women. So she contacted the feds. Says, Fani's so incompetent, you guys got to do something about this. She also called the bail company of Monson to inform them that he'd violated his bond conditions by being rearrested. Then they revoked his bond. So he was out on bond, committed a new offense. Oops. Plaintiff Mainor also filed a bar complaint saying that Commissioner Arrington uses his elected position to sway deals as a criminal defense attorney. And Mainor also filed an ethics complaint against Commissioner Arrington that he'd violated several ethics rules and the adjudication of the case. Now, Mainor has had to attend more than 10 hearings about this case. Mainor has had 6 different prosecutors. The last prosecutor who took the plea on the deal was Yolanda, saying they were bouncing around all the various desks. She suffered severe financial and emotional damages, and Willis was operating under the color of law when she caused these injuries. She also filed a board complaint with the Board of Commissioners. In December, Carrie Foster informed her we consider these violations, but the board also failed to follow proper procedure while adjudicating any of this. Of course, the board refused to hear the jail calls. They're like, we don't need to hear about it. It's Fani Willis. She's great. Commissioner Arrington, they didn't even listen to it. They cited attorney-client privilege as the reason it refused to hear the calls, even though they're public. Although a third party on the jail calls, that's why. There was a third party on the jail calls with Arrington and Monson. Okay, so it wasn't attorney-client privilege, right? It was breached. So new details. So the board failed to seek a judicial ruling on whether we can't listen to it. That's fine. In November, Monson was released from jail. November 2021. Guess what? This guy's released. Good job, Fani. Monson immediately began stalking Mainor again. Doesn't even wait a minute. As a condition of his probation, he was ordered to have no contact with Misha Mainor. After being released, he showed up to events. November 18th, Mainor ran into Monson as she was leaving a gas station near her home. It's a few hundred feet from her house. November, they told the DA's office of this. No one cared. No one took action. Willis, Mack, the DAs, no one took action. On December 10th, Monson attempted to enter a legislative office building, where she works. Dude comes right in. Capitol Police stopped him from entering. He's on a do not enter list. So they're like, no, sorry, bro. Monson informed the Capitol Police that the state campaign ethics office had instructed him to come into the building to testify. So he says, no, I'm here. I'm here for an official reason. It's the Capitol building. I need to be here. So they then go talk to this guy, Mr. John Cusack. Cusack, the chief counsel for the state campaign ethics office, he says, no, we didn't call him. We didn't call him to come in and testify. So he's lying to get into the building. On December 13th, Brian Hill of the Atlanta Police Department began an investigation into whether Monson violated the temporary restraining order placed against him by entering the building. As part of his investigation, he watched body camera footage from the police who were there, interviewed witnesses. He concluded that, yeah, he did violate the TRO. Yeah, definitely breached it. Now, investigator Hill was prepared to pursue charges against him, but guess what? The DA's office refused to prosecute the violation. No, he was just confused. They are making a warrant futile. And Yolanda says, well, it doesn't appear that his intentions were to violate the order, but simply to give testimony on his ethics complaint against you. He did not have any contact with you directly or indirectly, so just shut up and deal with it. No charges from Yolanda. You're fine. Which is interesting because he wasn't there to testify. John Cusack told us that. Weird. Again, Mack and Willis refused to take action. And so there's a claim here against Fani and Arrington and a bunch of people. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Their conduct was reckless, outrageous, distressful, and it was severe. Said Arrington used his public service position to disrupt the proceedings against Monson, and he intentionally circumvented the policy of the DA's office. And just to be clear, like, defense attorneys are supposed to break the policies. Like, I'm not upset about that. We break policies all the time. We know it's your policy, okay? That's what prosecutors always say. Well, that's our policy. We can't. Okay, quiet. I know what your policies are. Our job is to break them. So give us a better deal. I don't want to hear about your policies. So, that's fine. Like, you're allowed to intentionally get a better deal. That's the whole point of a defense attorney job. You're not supposed to be able to use your leverage over their salary to do that. Now, Commissioner Arrington intentionally used his political power to intimidate the plaintiff, again, inappropriate. And, it'd be like a prosecutor saying, your client, defense attorney, better take this deal or I'm going to prosecute you. It's like, what? You better give me a deal or your job is gone. It's like, whoa, it's not appropriate. Commissioner Arrington intentionally had ex parte communications with Judge Kimberly Adams. Apparently those two were indicting each other or something. And he was briefly assigned to Monson's aggravated case. So this judge, right, you can sometimes judge shop. You can have, let's have a settlement conference. Who's going to do a settlement conference on a Wednesday afternoon? Who's on the calendar? Who's available for that? Oh, this judge will do them. Okay, how about we make a request and get it scheduled? So, and it's probably what's happening, right? He's like, oh, I know this judge. She's going to be great. Let's come in here. And then after the proceedings over, he goes back into chambers. You know what I'm saying? Now, defendant Commissioner Arrington's behavior was reckless due to the nature of the charges against Monson and considering Monson's prior criminal activity. And the behavior caused Mainor severe emotional distress. She fears for her life. She's had to deal with this more than 3 times in a year. She's moving more than 3 times in a year. Severe anxiety and depression, strain and trauma, children living in. It's awful. It's not a good situation. Says Arrington's actions caused Mainor to experience intense feelings of intimidation, all sorts of things. Says Willis intentionally used her political power to dismiss a legal claim that was legitimate. Against the state rep, intentionally offered Monson a plea deal that went against her interests, showed deference to Arrington and his client to the detriment of her, instructed ADAs to compromise and advocate on behalf of Monson, failed to prosecute the probation violations, turned a blind eye to biased relationships between Arrington and the Superior Court judges, and that judge is on blast. Oh my gosh. Willis intentionally failed to recuse herself from the case, despite Arrington informing her of the case and plaintiff Mainor prior to her taking office, and so severe emotional distress has been caused. And Willis intentionally violated Georgia law, failed to advocate on behalf of victims, violated Marcy's law, failed intentionally to investigate claims, and caused severe emotional distress from Fani. And so, wow, even saying there's a RICO claim here. I like it. RICO practices. I like it. This claim is saying it's unlawful for people to racketeer, and in this case, they did. Arrington tampered with evidence by speaking with Willis about the case before she was even sworn in. Influenced this by encouraging Monson to file a false claim against the judge. Arrington made false statements when he filed fraudulent motions when he was a defense attorney. He committed bribes. He committed intimidation, she alleges, obstructed justice, and Arrington, the offenses were not part of a normal practice, but part of a systematic and ongoing pattern that was enabled and engaged in by Fani Willis as well. Hit her with the RICO, baby! Bribery in violation and obstruction of justice, says Willis engaged in bribery. She gave Arrington and Monson preferential treatment under the law. Okay, he says, I'll keep your budget the way it is as long as you give us a good deal. She does it. Willis obstructed justice. She failed to improperly investigate these cases. She gave him a plea deal that was too generous, and this claim is for damages and for a remedy. We want compensatory and consequential damages, damages for emotional distress, for humiliation, loss of enjoyment of life, pain and suffering, economic losses, special damages, punitive damages, charges out of Big Fanny and attorney's fees and all other relief as deemed appropriate by the court. Signed here by Kiana Chenault, writing out of Atlanta, Georgia at chenaultlaw.com. Nice complaint from Kiana against a very corrupt Fani Willis. So that's just insane to me that the depths of corruption continues to expand. We've got judges now. We've got commissioners now. Commissioners allegedly sleeping with judges. Commissioners who are in direct control, who've had conversations about the budgets, using that position and their budgetary powers to influence decisions by Fani's office to essentially threat. It's a free-for-all. It is an absolute circus in Fulton County, and it's wild to see. I guess this is the new acceptable justice in blue cities across America. So we'll see if there's any consequences for this in Georgia. Unlikely, because apparently nobody even cares if she doesn't even show up to the debates, just like more Fani. As long as she's prosecuting Trump, she can do whatever she wants. Belize, Napa Valley, she can go anywhere she wants, do anything she wants all the time with no consequences at all because she's the biggest Fani in Georgia. We're going to be here continuing to cover the shenanigans and the corruption out of this location. We hope that you join us as we do. Thank you for subscribing to our channel and inviting a friend or family member, someone you know or love, to come over here and join us when we go live. We'd love to see them and meet them as well. We have great links down in the description below. We have our members only community. We do live streams in the morning for our members only and on Saturdays. We'd love to have you come join us. watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We get into a bunch of other stuff that we can't squeeze in here on the shows. We'll look forward to seeing you over there and back here on the next one.